This is the College Football Connection podcast with Alvin Reed, Bradford Bruns, and Marty Jenkins on 101 ESPN.
College Football Connection land, let's take one final ride for the 2024 season. Bradford Bruns, Marty Jenkins, Alvin Reed. The Three Musketeers are back live in studio in Creve Coeur at long last. But guys, we don't have any Mickey Mouse business to address. Oh no, rather it is that national title game tilt. Monday night, Ohio State, Notre Dame. We know it. We understand the programs. We understand the prestige. It simply doesn't get much better than this, guys.
Man, I've thought, and you see here, I got, I'm going to need some luck of the Irish come tomorrow night.
We're proudly.
Yeah, but just thinking about it, I've kind of just been marinating, over the last few days, even the last week or two, just about the season. And, I know we joke about the Irish, the last few years, me being a fan and all that, but the fact that they're here, storybook, fairy tale, whatever you want to call it, is pretty damn unbelievable.
I just feel like I kind of got on that Notre Dame bandwagon going into it. And when driving out here, I was thinking, a lot of people are saying that they might lose to Indiana. Now, how ridiculous does that sound right now? Because I think they are the most deserving team to be in this game against Ohio State based on what they did in the tournament.
We have the top two teams.
Yeah.
We have the top two teams at the end.
And this proves that the 12 works. This proves that we should have gone to this format 20 years ago. But technically you have your 7 and your 8. Now, we all knew that they weren't the 7 and the 8. But based upon how, the conference champions and all that, what they had was their chance to reach the championship game. And they did. So I think it's marvelous. Like I said, I was trying to will my way into staying with the Irish on this one, but I just
Save it.
I haven't made my official pick yet.
That's okay.
All right.
Okay.
I'm close. All right.
Suspense abounds. Let's set that scene accordingly. This one is going to kick off at just after 6:30 p.m. Central Time, Mercedes-Benz Stadium, and 101 ESPN will actually have the second half of that contest following Blues and Vegas Golden Knights tomorrow, Martin Luther King Day. So looking forward to that. Always appreciate, of course, you're watching, you're listening, the 101 ESPN YouTube channel, plus 101ESPN.com, because even if this is the season finale, and what a season finale we're going to have at that, fear not, because much more content from your boys will be coming down the pike in a short period of time. But at present, and Marty, I haven't seen a lot of shifting in this regard since that initial line actually came out. At last check, Ohio State favored by 8.5. You understand all of the reasons, the justification for as much, and the over-under figure has been hovering between 45.5 to 46.5. Did you see it at last check what it was, I guess, officially?
46.5.
Okay, 46.5. You have it there. Okay.
So ESPN this afternoon had still posted 45.5,
right.
But that's probably that bet ESPN or whatever.
Sure. So it's right there.
It's right there.
It's
46.5 if that's
in a matchup.
This was probably what Ohio State will score. But anyways, go ahead.
Featuring the two teams with the top defenses as far as points permitted, fewest points permitted in the entire nation. So let's kind of reflect a little bit and figure out, really see the path or trajectory here, respectively, for both of these units. Entering the playoff, of course, you had neither of these teams actually benefiting from that first-round bye. So the Buckeyes had to go through, and they cut a swath through Tennessee. They knocked off, obviously, number 1 Oregon, and it wasn't particularly close before finalizing matters in the second half, pulling away in the fourth, ultimately, versus Texas, whereas Notre Dame absolutely made mincemeat of Indiana, as we have referenced, knocked off Georgia, Stockton and company as well, and then PSU in what was a thriller. Just the third game out of 39 to that point as far as college football playoff dynamics to be decided by 3 points or fewer. So nip and tuck affairs. A lot of people from a defensive standpoint, I think, expecting at least in the first 30 minutes to feel that again here. Now, the question is, when you come down to the two triggermen at the controls in this particular setting, you have Will Howard, who's been great for the majority of the CFP action. Riley Leonard has made more than an ample number of plays when necessary, keeping drives alive. Maybe you don't see it on the stat sheet, but he has been crazy efficient, and he has made plays when flushed out of the pocket. I am worried, understandably so, about the personnel from Notre Dame when it comes to injuries. But Marty, I think the Golden Domers, the Fighting Irish, the faithful, they have to have at least a lot more confidence right now, as opposed to a couple of months ago, in the man under center. Do they not?
Absolutely. As well as more confidence ever than the man leading the charge.
There you go.
But Riley Leonard, I mean, I've never trusted him. He came over. We know about NIU. But even with all the wins they strung together, and I know they have more confidence right now than they have had with him since he's came to South Bend. But even in the wins, I watched all those games, and he made poor decisions. He put up the numbers, great with his feet, got the job done. They strung off 11 in a row, in the regular season. But it's kind of like Drew Aller at Penn State. I don't trust him. I just don't. There's something there. And he's not going to have much time in this game. Now, granted, what he's done against Penn State, Georgia, fantastic. I'm stunned that has transpired, to be honest with you. He's not going to have any time in this game. And, like Dunk said, I think he's going to get the tight cheeks. That offensive line, two guys are out. Left tackle Star, he's donezo with Knapp. You got a backup coming in. I just don't trust that he's going to be able to do much with his feet this contest, and certainly I don't trust him in the air. Now, do they have a lot of confidence in him right now? Yeah, absolutely. But I just don't see it happen in this game. I think the fairy tale comes to a screeching halt with Riley Leonard.
Well, obviously they're going to have to run the football. And our St. Louis kid, Jeremiah Love, if he has a big game, I think if he clears 100 yards individually, I think that really helps. In fact, I think that's the difference in at least Notre Dame covering and not. But, they've had 10 days, and I know Ohio State's had 10 days to prepare for them, but I just kind of feel as though this is where not just how we say motivational coaching comes into play. They need to have something that Ohio State just has not seen before. And I don't know where they get it or how they get it, but I think I would bring something new to the game plan, some scheming, something offensively that Ohio State has not seen. As for the defense, I think it comes down to tackling. I really do. And not getting burnt for 80-yard touchdowns.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
So I would, Marcus Freeman does not need my advice, but I would say, I'd run a lot of zone and tell him when you got a chance to tackle these guys, tackle them.
Yeah.
Play like Tampa did. Play that. Right. Zone them up, and when it's no yak, no yards after catch, when you stop them in the backfield on a run, put them down in the backfield. And play 45 minutes of your 60-minute game and look up and be headed into the fourth quarter and say, we've got a shot at this. Because I think that's what happened in the game against Penn State was they looked up at halftime and said, if they'd have told us the first day of practice this summer, hey, you could skip ahead in the season and be in the national championship game and be down 7 points at halftime. And you take that. No matter how you got there, you say, I'll take that in a heartbeat. And I think that's where Notre Dame was.
I agree with you insofar as the recipe here, gentlemen, for success for Notre Dame to stay in the game, to try to maintain, have that ball possession, is going through Love. I do have some hesitation, though, insofar as, I get that it has been that layoff of approximately 10 days. To me, though, guys, against Penn State for longer stretches, didn't appear to have the same requisite explosiveness. That knee is an issue. We understand that the push up front, despite not having multiple starters on the O-line, is there. But if he cannot get untracked in exactly the same way, I'm not sure personally, Marty, and I'm not saying, hey, you have to put it on the right arm or the right shoulder of Riley Leonard, but who else in the vertical passing game, provided that you get enough time, if you are Leonard, is going to be stepping up in this game? Because you had unheralded dudes doing exactly that, stepping up to the forefront against the Nittany Lions. And I don't want to slight Notre Dame in the slightest here. I do think, however, especially from a defensive standpoint, and I have all the trust in the world in Al Golden, your front seven now, all three levels of that defense, tremendous all season long. There's a reason, especially in the secondary, why for 2 years running now, you've had the best pass efficiency defense. You're going to have to figure out a way and hope that Will Howard gives you one of those critical mistakes, that you are able to then turn a turnover, potentially into points in the form of a pick six or whatnot. Because we saw him, Alvin, I really think so, against Texas, especially in the first half, coming out pretty much on fire and being able to actually locate guys other than just Jeremiah Smith. I mean, you tell me here, if I am Notre Dame, I'm not doing anything overly exotic on defense, because I think that you try to emulate what the Longhorns and previously earlier in the year, the Wolverines did as well, as far as employing that too high safety look, trying to roll over, bracket a Smith in coverage. And with all due respect to Nagbuku, I am making him beat me. Now, last year in this matchup, he had 7 catches, yes, but Notre Dame has displayed. Just look at last season in that affair versus OSU, that matchup. Yeah, you ultimately lost by just 3 in South Bend, but you took Harrison Jr. out of the equation and you limited him to just 3 catches. If you can do the same with Smith, bottle him up a la Texas, you stand a much better chance in my mind.
Absolutely. Yeah.
I just think there's too many weapons there. With Egbuka, Tate, Smith, and I know everybody's looking forward to it's the Al Golden versus Chip Kelly show. It's that is the matchup. That secondary that has been absolutely nails. Man-to-man coverage, they've been good, but I just feel like, go ahead.
Can they stop this run? Can they stop the rushing attack of OSU? That's what I really want to know. Because
their run defense is not that. I think they're going to have a field day running the ball.
Well, Ohio State is favored by as many points as they are because of all these things that we're talking about.
Exactly.
Basically, it still comes down to, can Notre Dame make a play, not just one, several, when they really have to?
Yeah.
And get Ohio State off the field on some third downs.
Yep.
Get a big play every now and then. I mean, it's Ohio State brute strength versus Notre Dame magic. And, it's basically, that's kind of what it comes down to. Can Notre Dame find a way to win the game by staying close in the game, first of all?
To keep the magic going,
To keep it going, to keep the belief going. Because right now, the belief is strong. I mean, if Notre Dame were to score a touchdown on its first drive, the complexion of the game kind of changes. Because then Ohio State has to start thinking like, maybe something is going on here.
Exactly.
Maybe this is bigger than, the 12.
Yeah. And I think we could also go back 3 weeks ago. I think the win, Notre Dame has never been able to get over the hump. They got to the title game a decade ago, whatever. They got smoked by Bama. But it's always been Notre Dame versus SEC. I think that win over Georgia did something for a lot of people, including those players that throw on the jersey. I don't want to hear. I've heard, well, yeah, Georgia was banged up. They were missing this guy, that guy. No, you went toe to toe with the SEC power.
Yes,
and you beat them.
And beat them physically,
soundly.
Notre Dame doesn't do that.
Right.
They did it.
They did it.
That's why to me, it is a different defensive unit, and it is a different unit when it comes to being able to stuff the run to some degree. I look at what Notre Dame did, guys, in the first 3 games of the CFP, and I look at a rush defense that, while compromised, medically speaking, still permitted just 3.4 yards per rush to these teams, to the Hoosiers, to Etienne and the Bulldogs, to, my goodness gracious, Allen Singleton and Penn State. You were not able to gouge them. And, Alvin, there have been times this year, and I understand, I have railed against Judkins, especially in the backfield, because I do think at the end of the day that Henderson projects as more of your next-level guy, the explosiveness and what he gives you in the passing game, if not from, well, let's just say a mental lapse standpoint. See the first half of that game versus Texas. There has been inconsistency, and let's not act as well as if in the last week's game at the Cotton Bowl that Ohio State for 4 quarters was completely engaged and blowing Texas off of the ball at the point of attack. I think actually in that regard, we should give Notre Dame a little more credit. I really do.
Well, if you figure that Texas has the ball and drive for a touchdown to tie the game, once again, you looked at it, you said like, well, that team has shown that it's better than that team for most of this game. But here this team is, here's Texas knocking on the door, and then, everybody knows what happens once down there. But same thing is that Notre Dame said, like, hey, look, if we're not down 21 points at halftime, I think we'll be all right. But they could be.
I got a bad feeling it's going to be 21 at the half. But listen, I think, I don't want this to sound cliche with the quarterback situation, but, well, first off, I think you guys would agree with me that Notre Dame has got to play the perfect game, and Ohio State has got to make mistakes.
Sure.
I think if Notre Dame plays turnover free, if they get out of the game and don't turn the ball over, I think that goes a long way to final score.
Yeah.
No short fields for Ohio State.
Yeah.
That you just can't do that.
Right. Mm-hmm.
And so I think that's first and foremost. Now, am I saying anything that they don't know? Like, yeah, if we have a bunch of turnovers, we're going to get killed. That's just the way it's going to be. Mm-hmm. So if they're careful with the football, but also find a way to make some big plays. Either, like I say, Love rips off a 45-yard run, you connect on a deep pass. You got to do something to, acquire large amounts of turf in one setting. Because I don't think you also are going to have too many 12-play, 75-yard drives against Ohio State. Right. I think you're going to have to make something happen.
I agree.
Obviously, Notre Dame pursuing its 12th national title. First one since 1988, OSU going for number 6. Before we submit those official picks and predictions on the 101 ESPN YouTube channel at the end of the evening, who is the offensive or defensive threat, the primary playmaker who's going to key a victory one way or the other?
I think, did you say could be QB?
Absolutely.
I really think this comes down.
Either side.
Will Howard. I mean, Mr. Google me. Ohio State has turned the ball over this year against good teams. They've done it on numerous occasions. Notre Dame's going to have to do that, force a couple. But I just think Howard, I think he shows up here. I don't think he turns the ball over. If Notre Dame gets 2 turnovers, that's a different story. But I think he may turn it over once at the most. But I just think Howard, this all comes together, and there's a reason it's 8.5. I think it should be 11.5 or 12.5. But there's just too many weapons, and everything is benefiting them except for the Notre Dame secondary. And even the Notre Dame secondary's got to go up against those they're amazing wide receivers. I think it comes down to Will Howard, and I don't think he drops the ball on this one.
And they are pretty healthy, too, relative to Notre Dame, at least.
Right. And, the run that Love made for that touchdown against Penn State, obviously that was just sheer determination. Because I agree with you. He was not 100%. Maybe he's a little closer to it this week. I think they need him to be. Like I say, if he's 50%, 60%, that's not going to get it done because he had to come out of the game. He basically was in and out of the game. So obviously, his knee was bothering him. I'm looking at it as though Will Howard is the weak link, and if you can get after him,
you may have something cooking.
Yeah, you may have something cooking. So I think that attacking the quarterback by Notre Dame is almost first and foremost is like, hey, if we can get after him, maybe that slows the whole, juggernaut.
Yeah, maybe people start thinking, what's going on here?
Right. But I think and I had it written down. I think my kid, help me out, I'm drawing a blank. Notre Dame's wide receiver made plays against Penn State.
Jaden Greathouse, Aeneas Williams, Jaden Greathouse.
Yeah.
Greathouse or the tight end, Mitchell Evans?
No, give me one more.
Keep going. It wasn't Bo Collins.
It wasn't Bo
Collins.
Collins.
Nails. It wasn't exactly Nails for that match.
Why am I?
Greathouse was fantastic.
Oh.
Greathouse was too.
Williams leaking out of the backfield multiple occasions. You're going to need, I think the point is, you're going to need all of those different contributions to really make something resembling a competitive affair come to pass here. And Marty, I'm with you in the sense that Will Howard, to me, if you're able to demonstrate that ability to protect the football and make exemplary decisions, I firmly believe that right here in this instance, you're going to see, there you go.
Oh,
God.
yeah.
You're going to see as well a game plan from Chip Kelly that is extremely similar to what we saw in the first half versus Texas. Because if the defensive approach is similar as well, there are so many different options to whom you can check it down and work the intermediate areas. And then if it isn't Smith, if it is Egbuka or even a Tate, who is criminally underrated in my opinion, allow those guys to operate in space. And Henderson is the X factor from a passing game standpoint because of how difficult he is to contain coming out of screens and whatnot. So I do think that at the end of the evening, Will Howard, I can't believe right now that I'm saying this moment compared to a few months ago when I was talking about this guy having been outplayed last year by Brady Cook in mid-Missouri. But Will Howard has all of the elements there in place to be the guy on this evening. But that doesn't necessarily mean that we are riding with the squad ultimately to win by double digits. You know the numbers by now. 8.5 OSU. Are we talking about a multiple tutty victory here? And I think just as intriguing, if not more so, 45.5, 46.5. That one's very tough for me to predict, boys.
Faison's shifty. He's tough to tackle.
And he's tough, but he also made, in each of the games, he made a catch.
Yeah.
Contested, tough, big first down catch.
Not afraid of the moment.
And,
no.
and he'll need a couple of those. But he, like I said, he's right when it looks kind of iffy.
Good call on him.
He's made some plays. And I think he'll have to do it against Ohio State. And I mean tough catches while covered.
For sure.
And going to take a hit or something like that. He's the guy. He gets that catch, gets up to the 2-yard line. They take it in. And
yeah, I think it's interesting what you mentioned about that D-line of Notre Dame. I mean, Ohio State's offensive line is great. They're significantly bigger than Notre Dame's D-line. But that D-line can move. They can quick. If they get to him early on, you're right, Alvin, they could have something cooking.
Yeah, and their gap integrity, it's incredible. Same thing with the second level, too.
yeah.
With that being said, drum roll, Bradford.
I was in the percussion section.
Listen,
that's poor. It's been a while. It's been a minute.
I've been waiting for this moment since they got smoked, several years ago. But no, there's just too much, from the boys from Columbus. And I think you're looking at something, I'll go 34-17.
Okay. All right. A little higher on the points than I would have expected. What about you?
What's that?
A little higher on the points side than I would have anticipated.
Okay.
What about you, sir?
All right. I just can't pull the trigger on Notre Dame. I do have to go with Ohio State to cover the 8.5, but I think Notre Dame will score enough points that we're going to go to the over.
Okay.
I do. I kind of maybe a score similar to yours.
Okay.
I will say also that I think the difference in, you were saying you think it should be 11.5 maybe instead of the 8.5. I think that's because of the Texas game.
Yes.
I think you're looking at it, you're saying like, you really didn't put Texas away, and you could have. So whatever was missing in that game, you're going to be playing a team that's way more fired up than Texas is. And quite frankly, no matter what you say about Notre Dame's quarterback, yours, they were terrible. God. And wait, and now I'm going to the pros? No, I'm transferring? No, I'm like, dude, just go away, man. You let your team down.
Still going to get that payday.
Wait, look at exactly. And that was one where I know Sarkisian wouldn't have done this, but what if he'd put Archie Manning in the game at halftime?
You'll get it soon enough.
That's what I think. That's how it was. So like, it's yours from day one next year, but we're not going there in this game. And
he got us here.
Yeah, and it was almost like, man,
tempted
because he all of a sudden connects on a couple passes.
Yeah, you get something rolling.
Right, but they couldn't pull the trigger on it.
Speaking of connecting on a couple passes, I don't want to let this go. Did you see Notre Dame's backup when he came in?
Yeah,
he was rolling for a little bit, and I thought, man, maybe he should come out of the locker room.
He saved the game.
Yeah.
That 5 of 6,
Yeah.
and all was lost.
No doubt.
Right. And
That could have gone
he-
south in a hurry. Yes.
Right. In fact, weren't we all thinking, like, dude, you have to get a first down or else you're going to have to punt the ball
Yes.
back.
Yeah.
And then they gave up. Then all of a sudden you're down 17 to nothing.
I've seen some good memes on him, like
Right.
the true hero of tonight's
Oh,
game.
yeah, exactly. and the thing is that he had no idea. When I say he had no idea what to do, what I mean was, hey, you're in the game, and it's 10 to nothing, and the whole national championship season is on your shoulders.
Yeah. He handled it.
Yeah, here you go.
Yeah.
And he said, like, okay, all right, I'm gonna throw the ball. I'm gonna throw it to my team, not the other.
Yeah, I will say
Right.
this. A lot of people before the season started, were barking for him to be the starter.
Well,
over him.
and apparently he could have transferred.
Yeah.
But decided to just stay.
Mm-hmm.
So it paid off.
Putting a bow on the festivities in the ATL. The echoes, a while ago, were suitably stirred.
Mm-hmm.
We are well aware, alive and well. Marcus Freeman in year number 3 to do this, to engineer this sort of, I'm going to say, massive turnaround, to think of where this program was week 2 of this season, for crying out loud, to have put all of that off to the side and to have this team in position to win the Natty in spite of all of the injuries, in spite of all of the naysayers. Can you compete with the Titans in the CFP first year, inaugural year of this new format, SEC, Big Ten, everybody? They have effectively taken on all comers. Nonetheless, at the end of the evening, tomorrow night, Monday in Atlanta, firepower, sheer athleticism, physical superiority, all of that is on the side of Ohio State.
Mm-hmm.
And Ryan Day will finally have his day and night in season in the sun, if only for 1 year in Columbus. No, he did not beat Michigan. We still need that to happen. But between Howard, the backfield tandem, and at some point you just figure as well that Smith is going to get loose. Maybe it's in the second half. Notre Dame is going to make this a ball game into the fourth quarter. But the Buckeyes will prevail. I don't think that this game is going to approach 50 points overall, so I will take the under. But reluctantly, I will side with Ohio State to win the national championship, to do so, and to do so by barely double digits. So we believe that's how everything is going to play out to bring to a conclusion the longest college football season on record in history. It is hard to believe, guys, that way back on August the 24th that we started in earnest between Georgia Tech and Florida State. That didn't age so well. I guess it was appropriate, though, for
Ireland.
the trajectory of the season that would be, come for the Seminoles. So it's been a ridiculously fun ride and time on that front. Again, a finale for the college football side of things, but we're going to have a lot more to discuss from a collegiate athletics standpoint moving along here on the 101 ESPN YouTube channel. But we would be remiss in the midst of all of the divisional round matchups across the NFL. Just an hour or so ago, we had a crazy final, a crazy set of circumstances out in the city of brotherly love with the Eagles. They held on barely to knock off those Rams by 6 as we are talking actually at present. Lamar Jackson and the Ravens, one quarterback or the other, still looking for that breakthrough. Jackson or Allen. Jackson threw a first-half interception, so Buffalo with a 7-point edge. But I wanted to get your guys' thoughts on the makeup right now as we edge ever closer, of course, to Championship Sunday next weekend. It almost seems like a foregone conclusion. Again, Kansas City qualifies for its 7th consecutive AFC title game. That is really the contest to which you pay the least amount of attention from this weekend. But if we didn't see a star arrive on the national stage beforehand, last night cemented it at Ford Field for the opposing quarterback and the one who knocked off MU on the road last fall. Alvin, that was something to behold.
It was, and I will say this: that the Detroit, the media darlings, we love Dan Campbell, we just love Detroit and all that. Detroit had injuries; their defense was bad. And they said, "Well, they got it together." And I said, "Like Detroit, it was like they played the Patriots. They played like the 4 worst quarterbacks like in football."
That was a great point.
Yeah,
earlier
and
today.
so I was like, I'm not convinced that it wasn't the 4 worst. It was 3 horrible ones, and then Sam Darnold.
Well, Darnold's turned into a pumpkin all over
He
again.
turned right, so he just it struck midnight on him, and they ran into a really good team with a really good quarterback, and they just it was a shootout, and Goff was throwing interceptions, the Redskins were throwing touchdown passes, and that game just got away from them. And I think everybody in that building was so convinced that they were going to win by 2 touchdowns. When they were losing by 2 touchdowns, it was like a nightmare. That place was silent.
Yes, silent.
Fourth quarter,
You could hear a mouse fart.
and then people leaving. They were showing empty seats and carrying on. Like, these people oh, this is just horrible.
This was supposed to be the year.
This was supposed to be the year.
They're almost ready to paper bag it again.
Yeah, they got up out of there.
Yeah.
I saw a couple of memes. It's like loyal Detroit fans. It's like whole section, and there was like 5 minutes left in the game.
Yeah.
And they just.
He looks like he's not afraid of anything.
He's not, and I don't. And we saw it. We saw the game against Missouri, and I've told him. I said hey, look, that kid played a lot of football. And he played a lot of SEC football, and he single-handedly beat Missouri. I mean, LSU didn't have nothing going on.
Oh, I know.
You right.
I saw it firsthand.
Right. They had nothing going on. And like the last quarter and a half, it looked like they were saying, hike the ball to him, and he's either going to throw it to one of you all, or he's going to run it. And that is the play.
Yeah.
We're not doing anything. Hike the ball to him. Y'all get open.
Yeah.
And if you're not open, he's going to run.
Well, see, it's really not dissimilar so far at the NFL level because it really feels as though, Marty, that they're in the nation's capital. Cliff Kingsbury, resurrection on the coaching end for him. He has, though, the toy for which he had hoped in Kyler Murray, but Jaden Daniels is that guy. He is that dude. He's not afraid. He's nonplussed when it comes to any of these moments. The demeanor is always the same. And Alvin, to your point, as far as keeping the ball in his hands, that is exactly what has happened in Washington, too. Basically, hey, go make a play for us. We have Robinson in the backfield. We like what we have in Eckler as well, but you're going to find McLaurin over the top. You have another ascending star, it would seem, out wide in Brown. Whatever they need. And that team, remarkably on the road, essentially as a double-digit underdog last night. No turnovers, whereas I was texting with my brother about this before the game. It almost felt ripe. The time was ripe for another one of Goff's quarterly disasters, if you will. There are just some occasions, some games
No, I didn't
when it
see
happens,
that coming.
and it's awful.
It's awful. And I did not see that coming.
And also, Ben Johnson, the highly coveted, sought-after offensive coordinator, he's not nearly off the hook in this instance either, and I'll tell you why. Because you see what Jahmyr Gibbs has done down the stretch for this team. And I understand that David Montgomery, that Sonic and Knuckles tandem, it was back out there. It had been united. This is your guy. This is a top 5 playmaker, dare I say, in the NFL right now. So for him to have only received 14 carries in that game when he is averaging essentially 10 yards per carry and he is driving your offense, that is criminal.
Inexcusable.
And you reach into your bag of tricks in the second half as well, and you have Williams throw that pass.
Wait, and you,
what?
All right, you ran your one little trick play, and it worked earlier in the game. All right, so you pull that out, and say thought we all had, you're asking not only Jameson Williams to do that, but to make a wise quarterbacking decision, i.e., just don't throw it.
Yeah.
Just it's not there, don't throw it. And so you basically, when that happened, that's when people started we're going to lose for real here. Washington also, Eckler made the play when he had to.
Yeah.
Brian Robinson, big run. It's like every guy on that team had one play they could look back at and say, we really needed that play at that time, and I made it. And that's they just were able to hold Detroit off there.
Well, it's almost like when Washington, reeled off 21, 24 points. I don't remember the score. It's almost like all the coordinators at Detroit and the head coach are like, we didn't expect this.
Well, you did get that feeling, right? It was.
What do we do now?
What do we do now?
How do we stop him?
Because, and God bless Dan Campbell, but hollering and screaming and, press conference quotes, that didn't help yesterday.
No, it's immaterial.
That's immaterial. Somebody said, hey, they're carving us up.
Yeah, that's the future of the league right there.
Yeah, right. They're carving us up. One thing The Rams could have won if Kyron Williams didn't fumble that ball.
Well, see, that's what I was going to get to next, because in spite of Washington hanging 45 on Detroit, 481 total yards, Daniels with a superhuman performance, did you see enough to be able to have legitimate conference and confidence, for that matter, entering Conference Championship Sunday next weekend on 101 ESPN? Washington as the number 6 seed. Throw the numbers out right now, though, because with the way that offense is humming, you're talking about strength versus a very opportunistic, gritty, and physical Philadelphia defense, which, while gouged in the fourth quarter, Alvin, against the Rams, and it was perilously close there, this is a team, this is a unit that has produced 16 takeaways in the past 5 games. So does that dream scenario finally come to an end next weekend, or is there a real game on the horizon?
Well, they beat them once.
Yeah.
Now, granted, it was in Washington. But with that being said, I think Washington can survive a turnover or two. They can't, just give the game away. But from what I saw in the snow and Los Angeles, coming from Los Angeles, and, they had to play last week in Arizona and everything going on, you'd be foolish to think that Washington could not go into Philadelphia next week and just beat them. I mean, like, not beat them down, but no miracle finish or anything like that. Just basically take it to Philadelphia. Philadelphia didn't show me anything that was just super, super duper impressive today.
I just
other
worry
than
about the
Saquon
run D.
Barkley.
Yeah, the run D. That's the thing. It is a bit of a sore spot for that defense. And Barkley, I just want to throw these figures at you guys. In the 2 games against the Rams alone this season, okay, he had rushed for 255 in the first game. So you know what's coming at you. You know when you need that play to be made down the field that Saquon Barkley is going to be running down on hill on you. 78-yard TD today, second half. 62-yarder beforehand. He had over 200 yards again today on 26 carries. And I have had qualms, Marty, with the way in which Hurts at QB hasn't been able to really get through the progressions, I think, as well as some other, top-tier quarterbacks in this league. But when you have that guy who's having an all-time season, you put it in his gut and you go until he says, I need out.
I agree. And I think that's what they'll go with next week. Now, who knows what the weather will be like next week? Probably won't be snowing, but it might be really, really cold. Who knows? But I think Washington right now could beat anybody in a game of football.
Mm-hmm.
Now, we'll see at halftime if, Philadelphia bullies them and takes control of that game. But right now, they're very convincing. Put it this way, they look better to me than Detroit did at this time last year and was going out to play San Francisco.
Wow.
And probably should have won that game. And I would take this Washington team over that Detroit team right now, today. So it isn't like, it's impossible for them to go in there and win that football game.
I think we see a game like we saw a couple of years ago, Chiefs, Bills, the shootout, last team with the ball. Wins. I could totally see that happening next weekend. I need to see that line. I forgot to look at the line on that game. Did any of y'all catch it by chance?
I did not. I have
Eagles,
not seen.
Okay.
Wait,
Commanders.
if I had to guess, I would say
Philly minus.
I would say Philly giving 2.5.
Okay, I'd think it'd be more than that.
I just think that now everybody's caught on that, like, man, this dude here.
Well, you could have made some coin last night on the Commander.
Easy.
And
Easy.
Philly was riding that line for a good percentage of the game versus Green Bay. Didn't really look impressive in any particular department today. I wouldn't say escaped, but you cannot deny the ridiculousness right now of Daniel. So next weekend it's going to be compelling as per usual. On the championship side, you have Commanders and Eagles, and then Chiefs yet again after knocking off the Texans by 9 yesterday at Arrowhead, awaiting Buffalo or Baltimore to be determined. But guys, before we get out of here on the College Football Connection, 101 ESPN, the YouTube channel, and 101ESPN.com, we have to roll out that round ball just a little bit, because this weekend as well, this weekend alone, has produced yet, even more outstanding results for the local teams. Humming and rolling along right now, Marty. It's not just Mizzou having knocked off Arkansas and obviously Florida in the span of a week and waiting to see exactly where that team is going to wind up as far as the AP rankings. Rest assured, you will finally get into that mix.
Finally.
Illinois slew another nice victory as well. And I know this isn't your Rick Barnes, your classic Rick Barnes Texas squad on Tuesday that Mizzou is going to encounter, but can you keep that momentum going on the road in the SEC and maybe even improve to 16-3 already?
Yeah, and Mizzou, I think, for the next 5 games against top 20 teams, but I want to see where they go from unranked. I would have to think they go to about 15th, 14th, maybe. You don't think that high?
I don't think that high because whatever the bias is still there. And then when I say biases, why haven't they been ranked?
Mm-hmm. You said that earlier.
Yeah, I don't really. It doesn't make sense.
Before Florida, in my mind, before you went to Gainesville.
No, before you went to Gainesville, they should have been ranked.
I agree.
Right. How they've played. That love them, hate them. KU was still in the top 10. They were 9th, and Missouri beat them.
Yeah,
it didn't make sense. Handily. It didn't make sense. I still didn't get it. Right. So good for them. Good for SLU. Illinois kind of got thumped today, but Michigan State, that's a tough road game.
Illinois is good.
Illinois is pretty good.
Shout out to SIUE. They're tied for second in their conference. They've won 5 in a row before last night. But on the local front, yeah, and Mizzou, picked to finish middle of the pack, down in the basement almost this year.
If that.
This team's damn good.
Yeah.
They're really good. You mentioned the other day, we talked off camera, that you think maybe they're potentially a second-tier SEC team. I think they're a first-tier SEC team.
I need to see down the stretch in conference play. I still need to see, I think, a shorter rotation, and that's nitpicking, okay? But when it comes to clutch occasions and also in the paint as well, I'm a fan of guys like Gray, the energy guys, a cast-off almost from South Carolina. But as far as the effectiveness there, when you need a bucket late in the game from the post, and I know Mitchell has been your primary scorer as far as being able to facilitate in so many different ways and finish at the rim too. You don't want him out there beyond the perimeter shooting. They have a lot of guys to whom they can turn, whether it's Mitchell from Duke, of course, coming over from Duke, whether it's Tamar Bates. Last season, he was the lone bright spot really on campus, along with Sean East, okay? And then Caleb Grill, who hasn't even really been able to hit his true stride following all of just the gamut of injuries. They are set up well, but at the same time, I like the depth. I think it's that slippery slope, though, that Coach Gates has to navigate as far as, all right, back half of the SEC schedule. In whom do I really have the confidence, especially in the paint? Because we're talking about more of the perimeter-oriented guys, right? The playmakers. I don't know if you have the beef and the talent at that to make quite as much noise heading into March, but it's exciting nonetheless. And it's exciting, honestly, with SLU as well, downtown Chaffetz. I almost don't know, Marty, exactly to what to attribute more of the success in the A-10, because once we turn the page, basically, to league play on that front, it kind of looks like a totally different team. And I know personnel is different. You have Avila, of course. But something has switched as far as that flipping it around.
Yeah, I think him coming back, that resurgence there kind of gave them the spark. Before I forget, Tamar Bates from Mizzou and Indiana train. So we'll talk about Indiana down the road.
And very much you can say about it.
That disaster in Bloomington and Woodson. We'll save that for another day.
Yeah. Well, real quick, I was telling Bradford this.
We need this.
So I'm over on the Kansas City side, and their casino, which is Kansas, legalized gambling, just like Illinois. We're getting there, Missouri. So Hunter Dickinson is plus 185 on 20-plus points. I said, you know what? Man, they're about to chase this boy out of Lawrence after that performance against Iowa State. I said, I think he's topping 20. It wasn't on Bet ESPN's book. That prop wasn't. I'm giving the guy my $100. He said, actually, they don't have that one posted. And I know DraftKings did, but they're not a DraftKings facility. So I would have won, but I told Bradford that. But technically, you never, that was a sign that you're not supposed to make this bet, Alvin. Mm-hmm. So if I had made the bet, he'd have scored 4 points.
4 points.
Right, exactly. So it turned out well for the Jayhawks and me, probably most likely. But I would have been, like I said, I tabbed that one. Now, he ain't going to do nothing else the rest of the year. But, yeah, I had that one.
I, for one, along with 20,000 of our closest friends in Columbia, will forever be indebted to one Mr. Dickinson for December the 8th. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Mm-hmm. Awesome.
One last football note before we get out. What's Brian Kelly thinking down there at LSU?
I've seen a lot of good memes on him, man.
He's not thinking. He's just dancing the night away.
He's
He's just dancing that night away, baby.
Dancing the night away. Saying like, yeah, because it's like, oh yeah, I came down here to play for the national championship. Right? They're playing for the national championship. What? Yeah.
And you want to talk about stock as high as it gets? Marcus Freeman.
Marcus Freeman. Oh, by the way, they're also looking at Brian Kelly saying like, this dude here played for you last year, and how many games did y'all lose?
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Yeah, it's not good.
This guy tearing up the NFL. Y'all lost 4 games
Yeah.
last year or something.
Not good.
All right.
Hey,
Okay.
you guys can hold the feet to the flames with respect to somebody who expressed a little bit more of love and admiration for LSU coming into the season. But what an absolutely circuitous path it has been. It has always been compelling. It has been intriguing, and it has been a joy, honestly, to talk with you guys, to rap with you guys as much as possible, as much as we have this season. So the longest season that we have had on record as well, and not just doing it from an audio standpoint on 101ESPN.com. We loved that in years past, but now having the platform.
Love the YouTube.
Thanks to Drew.
Oh, yeah.
Thanks to, Mike Ryder, our
Thank you, everyone.
entire audience, the 101 ESPN YouTube channel. And while this does mark the end of the college football road, college football connection for us 2024 style, again, rest assured we're going to have hoops coming along very shortly. And honestly, can't wait for any and all off-season conversation. Another portal window is going to be opening up before you know it.
Mm-hmm.
So just sit tight.
Go Irish.
Yep.
I'm with you. Hope they do it.
Hope they do it.
My guys, Alvin Reed, Marty Jenkins, I am Bradford Bruns. Thanks to each and every one of you out there in the audience all season, whether you were a consistent subscriber, checked in here and there, hope that you were entertained, that you were able to pick up a little bit of knowledge and maybe even make some of that classic scratch as well. But until next college football season, again, this has been the College Football Connection for 2024. That edition for Marty, for Alvin, I'm Bradford Bruns. We will catch you very shortly. Enjoy the national championship tomorrow night on 101 ESPN.
Thanks for listening to the College Football Connection podcast on 101 ESPN.